News.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is the WBC featherweight title fight between the defending champion, Tiara Brown, and the unbeaten up-and-comer, the challenger, Rapp? Scheduled for 10 two-minute rounds in the women's featherweight division on the undercard of O'Shea Jones's upcoming MVP debut next weekend. What is Tiara Brown in store for against Hannah, who is 12 years younger than the defending champion and looks to be a tall drink of boxing? Both fighters are registered as standing in at about 5'7", but having had a look at Hannah, I think she's a little bit taller than that. The night of, I think she will be the taller, longer fighter opposite the ring, Tiara Brown, who sports an unblemished record of 20 wins with no losses and no draws, 11 knockouts, to Hannah, who is a lot less experienced at only 8-0 with 1 draw and 5 recorded knockouts. So far, the best fighter that young Hannah would have fought would have to be New York's own Melissa Odessa Parker, who she drew with not but a few fights ago, when Hannah only had really a handful of fights. I think that actually counts towards Hannah's abilities as a boxer, that she was able to draw with someone as experienced as a Melissa Parker. Last in action earlier this year in February, opposite the ring, Viridiana Morales, who she stopped in the 3rd round of a contest scheduled for 8. And having fought 4 times in the previous year, young Hannah Rapp goes into this fight with a lot of momentum and no ring rust to have to shake off. And having stopped 3 of her last 4 opponents, it would seem that on some level, Hannah is a hard puncher and a big girl. 3 of those opponents were unbeaten fighters. And so the champion, Tiara Brown, would be the next unbeaten fighter that Hannah takes on. Tiara, who was last in action in September of the previous year, opposite the ring, France's own Emma Gongara, who she decisioned over 10 rounds. Experience would definitely have to go to Tiara Brown. She's had more fights, more rounds in the banks, and against better opposition than Hannah Rapp has had the opportunity to share the ring with. Tiara Brown, we know. Tiara Brown, we've seen before. What do we need to know about Hannah? What kind of fighter is this? And as stated, even though she's registered as standing in at about 5'7", she looks to be a lot taller and longer than that. The night of, I think she's going to have size on Tiara Brown, and we know she's got youth. Some power. And some ability to handle herself mid-range to inside, which is often uncommon among taller, longer boxers that have longer arms. Most of the time, it's very awkward for them to fight in the pocket, whereas Hannah Rapp is able to catch and counter and handle herself mid-range to inside. She's not a stiff stick, Hannah Rapp. She bends at the waist and knees, angles off with the torso, has fluid movement, and this does not have the look of a tune-up fight for Tiara Brown. This looks to be a fight. She's not just keeping busy here. Tiara's gonna have to fight to keep the green and gold title, and at 38 years old, it's almost like it's a countdown until Father Time finally catches up. Because we don't get faster as we get older, we don't get sharper, and we don't get stronger. I like Tiara Brown, but she's in the same age bracket as me, practically. And I'm an old fucking fart. So I don't think it's far-fetched to say that if nothing else, Hannah Rapp can push Tiara. I wouldn't bank on her to beat her, but I do think she can push her and make her work. Tiara Brown on points is the pick. In a fight that might turn out to be more competitive than people expect, knowing so little about Hannah Rapp, they may not realize that Tiara is in for a fight. And as stated, it's all set to go down next weekend on the undercard of O'Shea Jones's MVP debut, which will be broadcasted via ESPN+. Not to be confused with ESPN Linear. It's not the same thing. MVP's broadcast deal with MVP looks to be a bit different than the arrangement Top Rank had, because all of Top Rank's cards were on ESPN+, whereas MVP's, some are ending up on Linear, and others are ending up on the Plus. This one's ending up on the Plus. So if you don't have the Plus, you won't be able to watch it. Simultaneously set to go head-to-head with the Matchroom show happening that same night, where Bam Rodriguez will be making his bantamweight debut. I don't like the way they're dividing these cards between Plus and Linear. I think it creates unnecessary confusion for the boxing fan. It would have been nice if you can get all the MVP shows on Linear or all the MVP shows on the plus that you have to toggle between the two. It's a bit frustrating. In any event, I do expect Tiara Brown to hang on to her green and gold title, though not without being pushed, not without having to work, because I think Hannah can make her work. And you never know, if she leaves a lasting impression, if she loses, but she manages to put up a good fight, you never know. MVP might decide to sign her. I like Tiara on points.
But ProBox is going to pull back. As you guys have probably noticed, there's no more talk shows. They weren't financially feasible. Gary spent a lot of money. Gary, the boss of ProBox, going to Jonas, spent a lot of money, with production and all this other stuff and trying to basically grow the channel. And in some ways it grows, in some ways it doesn't. The access point for ProBox is our fights. Our fights are what everybody loves. The talk shows, they get only a certain amount of views, but all boxing talk shows in general only get a certain amount of views, if you notice. And that's what Gary noticed. No matter how much we sparkle up a talk show as much as we can, it only has, that give or take at best 10,000 views a day maximum, per video maximum, so you're not going to be able to sustain an entire staff there doing it that way. So he's pulling back on the talk shows, the daily talk shows that everybody loved. I mean, listen, it's a niche group, and I know you guys love them, but it's just not big enough. I always used to say about ProBox, guys, support it, tell your friends, because the channel has to grow in order for us to stick around. You know what I mean? It is not a big conglomerate like Showtime was, where it's owned by Paramount and where they just spend a bunch of money, where I always used to be at Showtime, or even these other big networks now like DAZN and Paramount. ProBox is still
Fight Stars TV.
Yeah, or Fight Stars TV, exactly. These things are sustained by basically mom and pop style. A big boxing fan like Gary Jonas wants to, loves boxing and wants to do something with it. And, it's not sustained by a big monster corporation, sustained by his own money. He's done very well in life, but at the same time, it's still a regular person who's trying to sustain this thing, and it just was unsustainable. Now, we're not going to go away. Tell you what we're going to do, though, okay? I'll tell you what ProBox is going to do, and that's why it's pulling back, and my salary's diminished a little bit, too, and that's why instead of paying off some stuff and moving to Sicily, I'm kind of stuck in that limbo right now, The thing is, we're going to just do fights from now on, okay, guys? We're going to just do fights, but instead of 2 fights a month, we're going to do 1 fight per month, so that the budget he can put into the fights is going to be a little bit higher, maybe a little bit more quality, And we're going to start on the new system. We're kind of on it now, but we're still free. We're going to start in August at $5 a month. Okay, $5 a month. You're going to get 1 free card. I mean, well, not 1 free card, but 1 card a month on ProBox, and possibly some other stuff as we try to grow it back a little bit. The only thing is this, guys. We don't get enough subscriptions to sustain this. ProBox will be gone for good. All right, so this is he's going to try to shoot this for the rest of the year. He's going to try to put on some really good cards for the rest of the year.
I went to one in San Bernardino. I took my mom. She loved it.
Bro, I'm telling you, we have some great cards. We're actually coming back to San Bernardino. It's a big blockbuster card, August 29th, so I'll be working that one. I'm trying to work it out to where, I'm still going to be working all the shows commentating. Obviously now, like I said, I've got to offset budgeting wise and do a lot of other stuff as well. But in the meantime, what I'm going to tell you guys at home, if you guys like ProBox, and I really think boxing needs a channel like ProBox, because all these other channels are big monster channels that, have the championship level, and you need that kind of middle class in the sport of boxing. And ProBox is sort of that middle class, but it's a great middle class. It's a lot of fun fights. You guys know the action we bring you. Sustain ProBox at $5 a month. I'm going to give you guys a link in the coming months.
So I just caught wind of the unfortunate news that ProBox has fallen on hard times, and they've had to give the axe to their shoulder programming. It's the same thing Fox did with all the shoulder programming they had for the PBC when they were in business with them. Budget cuts, which is unfortunate because I like a lot of the content that ProBox kicks out. I like the shoulder programming, I like the boxing talk, I like the boxing matches, but I've long wondered, how is any of this sustainable when you've got big names like Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, these very familiar faces in the industry, as well as the production value of their fights, which is actually pretty good. Chris Algieri seems to have gone all in with Boxing Scene. He's migrated over there. He's doing his boxing talk over there, Boxing Scene, that seems to have gone through its own set of budget cuts, laying off several of their boxing writers. Given their platform, a sort of complete overhaul, a different look. It's a little bit more streamlined. It's important to note that Boxing Scene is also owned by Gary Jonas. So it's not a coincidence that when Boxing Scene is going through budget cuts, so is ProBox, that has provided us with many good and solid cards at an affordable price.
No price at all for a long time.
You were able to watch it all on YouTube, which is free for everybody. Though I remember, upon ProBox's inception, in the very early days of ProBox, they actually started out as an app. I remember because I subscribed to it for something like $8 or $9 a month.
That didn't last long.
Because before you knew it, the app was no longer functional and ProBox's content had gone all in on YouTube, so you watched a lot of their cards there. And it was fun while it lasted, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to. Not if ProBox is going back behind a paywall that, according to Paulie, is going to cost the subscriber about $5 a month. It doesn't seem like much.
It doesn't seem like a lot, but do I imagine that enough people are going to kick out $5 a month to keep ProBox afloat?
I don't see it. $8 a month wasn't a lot, and people weren't kicking that out, so if they drop it down to $5...
Listen, it's not much better. The situation is not that much different. The problem is there are too many paywalls within the boxing space. You have to subscribe and pay for almost everything.
When you consider that ProBox, largely in part, was free for the fight fans the whole time, all they had to do was tune into their YouTube channel, and they wouldn't have had to pay anything.
Enough people didn't do it.
Enough people weren't watching to sustain ProBox's YouTube channel and that effort. So I don't imagine that even more people now are going to kick out $5 for an app.
Nah, they're not.
And that sucks. In a manner of speaking, ProBox has a lot to compete with Gary Jonas and his foray into the sport of boxing, where he owns Boxing Scene. He's got Ring Magazine to compete with.
That operates a lot like ProBox.
They have their own print medium with their own shoulder programming, their own sit-down boxing talk segments.
ProBox had a lot to compete with.
They now have Zuffa Boxing to compete with, and I would not directly attribute ProBox's potential demise to the rise of Zuffa, but there is something to be said about them targeting the same demographic of fighters.
Virtual unknowns and unbeaten up-and-comers looking to fight on a regular basis, as well as a few familiar faces and seasoned fighters that have got a few career blemishes. Zuffa, like ProBox, gives them a place to fight. The difference being is Zuffa has a lot more money behind it. So if this demographic of fighters have to choose where they're going to go, where can they make more money, more often than not, they're going to choose to go to Zuffa.
Even if Zuffa Boxing hasn't been around long enough for them to have become a problem, I would not directly attribute the rise of Zuffa to the demise of ProBox. Eventually, that was going to be a problem.
Because ProBox has a lot to compete with.
Which is unfortunate, because I've enjoyed so many of ProBox's cards since they launched, but often wondered, how is this sustainable? How are they paying for this, and how are they going to make any money back?
Well, can't they just be absorbed by a DAZN? Can't Gary work something out with them?
We can't really kumbaya this thing, because things are already pretty crowded at DAZN as it is, who has arrangements with several smaller promotional outfits, just like ProBox, and don't forget,
Top Rank just went over there.
they now have the entire Top Rank stable of fighters to accommodate, to where things at DAZN are already pretty crowded. In an ideal world, ProBox would migrate over there to fill the gaps on the weekdays, so that you can get your weekly fix of boxing
In between the bigger shows, in between weekends, but they kind of already have that. Just yesterday, Eye of the Tiger Management had a show on DAZN.
So they don't actually need ProBox to fill those gaps. They've got enough there that they're doing that already, and it's unfortunate. But how many times and how many live streams have you heard me query,
Heard me ask, how is this sustainable? How can ProBox and Gary Jonas make any money from this when this is how they're distributing it? Their YouTube channel just wasn't big enough. It wasn't garnering enough views to pay for everything they were doing.
in theory, because YouTube is one of the biggest platforms on the planet, you would have thought that you could at least get a few 100,000 people to watch a ProBox card.
And if you could do that on a regular basis, they probably wouldn't be in dire straits.
The one thing about boxing fans is they are very, very picky eaters.
I would hope that somehow ProBox can pull themselves out of this rut and find a solution, but it's not encouraging.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Sean Zattel reports he's hearing that Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney to Zuffa is a done deal, and Zuffa wants Haney versus Stevenson next. And Jay Prince went to the WBO to get Keyshawn installed as Haney's mandatory to make that fight instead.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because apparently Shakur Stevenson doesn't want that fight next, but without word from him, it's in the air. It's all speculation. Sean continued, "It is hard to sort out what is what. Stevenson has maintained for a while now that any reports on him about a move to Zuffa or a Haney fight are untrue. I reached out to a few people on his team to try and hear what's what and haven't been able to confirm or deny." Now, Top Rank apparently is all for a Haney versus Davis fight. They may only have a fight or two left with Keyshawn Davis and like the matchup with Haney at 147. Keyshawn, too, is all for it. But Zuffa, Team Haney's priority, is the Stevenson fight. We'll see what shakes out. Both are great matchups, though, of course, one would theoretically pay more than the other. Devin Haney doesn't want to go back to fighting top-ranked fighters for top-ranked money. Zuffa is connected to Turkey El Sheikh.
He wants another turkey bag.
He figures he can get it fighting Shakur as Stevenson Rodriguezson. It's not a fight that gets my juices going. Doesn't get my dick hard.
Don't rub me till I come, please, please.
But I see a lot of chatter around it. Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney, respectively, have their own separate factions of fans who are a lot more excited about this conversation, this fight, than I am.
I could go the rest of my life without ever seeing another Devin Haney fight.
Is it possible that two very established names like Shakur and Devin could both be migrating over to Zuffa?
Yeah, I could see that.
Zuffa's kicking out purses to guys like Conor Benn. Purses in the neighborhood of $15 million. They're essentially overpaying to play. And what are American fighters more interested in than being overpaid? Devin wants to be paid in excess of his marquee value. He's been overpaid his entire career, and he wants to keep that ball rolling. Shakur,
I mean, he's the same way.
so if you're saying that these fighters are going to be overpaid by Zuffa, then what is the ROI? How does Zuffa actually benefit from bringing them over?
It's what I told you in my previous video. The purses for guys like Conor Benn, Devin Haney, and Shakur Stevenson, in theory, they're not coming directly from Zuffa's budget. They're coming from Turkey.
So Zuffa isn't actually losing anything if Turkey decides to pay these fighters well in excess of what they're worth and their fights. It's not really at any expense to Zuffa,
They ain't losing nothing.
but they are gaining a little bit more brand trust, brand power, that two established names like Shakur and Devin would have decided to migrate over there and box under that banner. It raises that banner's profile.
More reason to watch Zuffa cards. More reason to get familiar with the brand.
Zuffa would fast go from being Dana White's latest slave ship to the destination for big-time fighters that want to make big-time purses. Remember what the initial gripe was, that Dana White is going to underpay the boxers like he underpays his MMA guys. That narrative got put to rest a long time ago.
Do you think Devin would be going over there for peanuts?
This is a very interesting development for a very uninteresting fight between Shakur and Devin, because I'm not interested in seeing them fight, but them going over to Zuffa, that is interesting.